Hello and welcome to another X-Ray.tech video. My name is Tom Nasser, the Automation Alchemist, and today we're going to talk about documenting your automations. As you build more automated workflows, documentation becomes a very important discipline to maintain. You need to be able to keep track of what your automations do and how they work so you can update them over time and repair them if they break. In this video, we'll quickly explain the difference between logging and documentation, and we'll share some of our best practices for documenting your automations for yourself and other automators. First, let's clarify the difference between documentation and logging. Documentation consists of descriptions of what an automation does and how to use it. Logging consists of metadata generated when an automation runs. Both are crucial for tracking and maintaining your automations, but in this video, we'll focus on documentation. We'll tackle logging in a future video. One of the main purposes of documenting your no-code or low-code automations is to ensure that any automator who needs to contribute to your automations understands how they work. But even if you're a solo automator, detailed documentation can come in handy. An automation you built last week may still be fresh in your mind, but when it runs into an error 2 months from now, will you still remember how it all works well enough to be able to fix the bugs? Creating documentation for every automation you build involves a little extra work in the short term, but ensures that you won't need to rely on your memory to fix automations in the long term. With that in mind, there are 2 main ways you should document your automations: descriptions and diagrams. First, you should take steps to add basic documentation within the automation you build. Every Zap you create in Zapier or every scenario you create and make should include as much information as possible about how it works. Give each automation a descriptive title and give each step or action a descriptive name as well. Instead of naming a Zap new contacts, call it something like add new website contacts to directory in Airtable. Instead of using the default names for steps like create record, go with something more descriptive, like create a new contact in the directory table. Use your titles to illustrate the purpose of each automated action, and make it clear where the data is coming from and going to. This way, any automator you work with can understand the basics of your automation just by opening them up in Zapier, Make, or any other automation platform. Ultimately, there are limits to what you can document with automation titles alone. For more complex automations, you'll need some external documentation to really explain the nuts and bolts of important technical decisions. Technical documentation typically takes 2 forms: descriptions and diagrams. For descriptions, you can use apps like Notion or Google Docs to write detailed summaries of what each automation does and how it works. In these docs, be sure to include salient details like the logic and technology the automation uses, any common problems it encounters, planned updates, links to relevant API docs or databases, and more. Treat these docs as all-encompassing how-to guides that can train any automator to use, troubleshoot, and update your automations. They should be able to understand the goal of the automation even if they don't open it up in the actual automation platform. To further illustrate how your automations work, you can use diagrams to add a visual component to your documentation. We'd recommend using Lucidchart to make a BPMN diagram. A BPMN diagram will let you chart each step visually and will clearly demonstrate the flow of data from one app to the next. It will also help you distinguish automated actions from manual steps at a glance. I hope this video was a helpful primer for documenting your automations. With detailed titles, descriptive guides, and simple diagrams, you can ensure that anyone on your team can work on your automations in the future. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support the channel. If you'd like to learn more about no-code and low-code automations, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. And you can find all of our content on our website at xray.tech. You can check out all those links in the description down below, and as always, don't forget, keep the flow.